As with any relationship, sometimes things do not work out as planned. As you work with your advisor, you may discover you have incompatible work styles, different research interests, or other reasons why the relationship is no longer effective for you. Additionally, your advisor may have reasons why he or she thinks a change to a new advisor would be mutually beneficial for both of you. It's important for you to advocate for yourself to make sure you get what you need from that relationship. As with any breakup, you may be concerned about potential negative ramifications associated with the decision. However, if you handle the breakup in a professional manner and are honest with your advisor, you may find it actually improves your relationship. If you find yourself in a position where you are considering changing advisors, consider this advice on how to manage the transition successfully.
So that's a really interesting question, and it's a really difficult process. I've received feedback from students, and the thing that I do like about it is that they're really forthright about it. They make an appointment with me. They say, I want to talk about these issues. So I know beforehand what this conversation is going to entail. My communication preference is for them to be very forthright about it, because it tends to be a long-term connection and long-term relationship. And if there are issues that are there, they tend to fester and make it worse over the long term. And it may be better to try and address them earlier.
Honesty is really the best approach. They might try doing something that beyond sending an email. Sending an email is good, but auditing a course, re-engaging by auditing a course or showing up for a talk on campus, but explaining what happened. We know that all of our students are adults. They have lives, they have jobs, they have families. So we understand that, but just being forthcoming, not being shy about it, and doing something to demonstrate their commitment that yes, they're ready to re-engage.
I think the students should seek out our staff. So our staff and say, I'm having issues with this faculty member, and seek staff advice. So the staff work very close with our faculty and understand us and understand the way that we, that's just how that person is with everybody, right? So, and maybe it can smooth over some of the things in the relationship to have a bigger picture on it. Or or speak to other faculty about it, right? What faculty that they trust to say, this is my dissertation chair, and I feel like she doesn't like my project, or she's rude or whatever, right? And come to someone like me, and I could try to get at the root of the issue, right? To see whether this is something that, I think you're reading into it more than is there, or, I think this is a real problem, right? And I think you should go a different direction.
If you think your advisor's behaving a certain way toward you, and that's bothering you, talk to your advisor. Give your advisor the benefit of believing they are there and looking out for your best interest. If something they're doing is upsetting you or not working for you, tell them and give them a chance to fix it.
When I was a doctoral student, I had a great advisor. We got along terrifically. He's one of my best friends still today. But while I was writing my dissertation, it just happened it was the worst year of his life. I was not his number one priority. And so this while I was researching and writing my dissertation. In some ways, I didn't know any better because I'd never written a dissertation before. I didn't know how often you were supposed to check in with your advisor. But I went over a year really without even hearing from or seeing my advisor. And that wasn't ideal. I hope that doesn't happen to most students. But for me, the key was I just kept going. I just kept working. I wasn't waiting for him. It was my dissertation. It was my PhD that I was working towards. And I was very lucky. He came in at the end and was enormously helpful at the very end, helping me sort of reorder and rewrite some parts of my dissertation and rethink it, sort of catching up on all the stuff he hadn't done in that year. But things happen, right? To faculty members, to students, and I think students just have to recognize that the most important thing is to keep making progress. Slow and steady wins the race.
If you feel your mental health is not as good as it can be, no one wants you to keep pushing until you're at the place of complete burnout. I often have students write to me and say, I'm just mentally not in a good place. Can I have an extension? I will always say yes. I'm having family problems. Can I have an extension? I will always say yes. Communicate with your advisor if you need to about personal things that come up. They will understand. They want you to be mentally healthy, and you pushing yourself to the breaking point is not good for anyone. So be honest with your advisor if they're asking too much, if you feel it's more than you can handle, and they'll do what they can to meet you halfway.
It's communication, and it's letting that individual know that your scholarship is maybe going a different direction, or what you need from the relationship is not being met. And this is not a personal decision, this is a professional one. And often, when advisees come to me and they say, oh, I think I want to study positive psychology and flow. I'd like to work with Dr. Csikszentmihalyi. They really almost convey a sense of guilt that they don't want to work with me anymore. But I think it's wonderful, because it means that they found a passion that they really want to explore, and it may not always be, in my direct area of expertise. So I think the communication is key. I think focusing on the fact that it's a professional decision, not a personal one, and being really able to articulate why you think a different advisor relationship would be more beneficial to your career.
Whenever a student wants to change advisors, I always tell them, keep in mind this is your education. You've got to be in control of your education and your experience. And so if a relationship with your advisor is no longer productive for whatever reason, and there's a million different reasons why that could happen, then it's time to change. And especially here at CGU, we all advise a lot of students. I think it's important for the student to do it openly, and with good communication, not just a kind of one-line email, but to either sit down with the professor or have a phone conversation or more extended exchange in some way to explain the situation and just say, I think I'd like to change advisors and move on to somebody else. And at least the colleagues that I know and have worked with here are very open to that, because if it's not working for the student, it probably isn't working for the faculty member either. And so it would be to everybody's mutual benefit.
I know two people who literally changed their field, which is unfortunate. But you almost have to do that because the person is in that department, right? And the departments are small. And so in two instances, with this same person, one person left the department and transferred to another one, and then the other student just changed her area of emphasis. So they didn't have to work with this person. But yeah, the person was very verbally abusive and insulting, condescending, and had students literally in tears, because they were made to feel like, I can't believe you're in a doctoral program, that kind of thing. So yeah, no. And that person should be reported.
It's really important to secure another advisor first before changing, so that's where I would start, identifying a faculty member who you do have a good relationship with. And this is important to think about from day one, building a kind of repertoire of faculty members who may serve on your committee. So taking multiple classes, don't put all your eggs in one advisor basket by taking all your classes with one faculty member. So if you feel like it's not working out with your advisor, identify someone who can step in, and then be honest with that advisor, with the original advisor, and say, this is what I felt wasn't working. Almost always we'll say, okay, great, good luck. If you would like me to be on your committee, I'm happy to do that. So if you do identify a new advisor and change advisors, I think you owe it to the old advisor to at least tell them what happened.
I think the choice of an advisor is a hard one. And students end up with a kind of automatic advisor when they come in who's in their field, but sometimes it doesn't work. And so I would say, if it's not working for whatever reason, that it makes sense to feel out some other potential advisors, and just work with, it basically sounds terrible to say, but just, do it. Sometimes you need to change because your interests have changed and your interests don't mesh with the person who you were initially given as an advisor, and that's perfectly okay. People aren't going to be offended. Most of us have a fair number of advisees, and we're not going to be offended. We are not going to punish you if you decide to go work with someone else primarily. It's a pretty easy process. Talk with someone else and work with the administrative assistant in your department.
Don't feel that if you select an advisor in the beginning, then you just get stuck with it. And maybe, there's other reasons. Maybe your research directions has changed, or maybe you just feel your style won't work really well with your advisor. And if that happens, it could be just a chemistry issue. I just couldn't work with that style. It's totally fine, and it won't hurt anyone's feelings. But do it as early. What you don't want to do is you almost finish your proposal writing and say, I want to change the advisor. It's way too late for you, and that really going to hurt other people's feelings because the advisor has worked with you probably a year. So early stage is totally fine.
Sometimes just that students, when they come into the PhD program, they think one thing, or they're thinking about saying one thing, and then they take classes and they want to say another thing. I try not to have the PhD students pick their chair right away. I like to stay as their advisor because it's really paperwork and just the advising of classes. I always tell them, talk to faculty for more detail about classes, but I really am the point person. It's not until really after the qualifying exam and they've really done some more research that I tell them to talk with the faculty. And if they do need a change, it's a smooth process. Faculty understand that sometimes ideas just don't work, people don't work together, and that they realize if somebody's in health informatics but maybe wants to do more GIS related in the health area, that one of our other faculty would be better. It doesn't mean that he won't be part of the committee, he just might not be the chair anymore. And then we've also had situations where personalities just haven't worked out when it comes to research, and so we've rectified the situation and have had students work with different faculty members.